webinar today is we'll be covering the trading opportunities in stock index futures and the forex. So this speech will be conducted by our investment analyst Tian Yong, who is from our Phillip Futures. So before we get into our presentation, let me just have a quick update for you guys for the two US market promotions. So currently we have this first one, the trade US market at 0.18% commission rate with our margin and share financing accounts, and also our financing rates as low as 3.5% per annual. And the next one would be the transfer in your US shares today and receive up to $88 rebate. So for time being, I'm not going to talk more on our promotions. Later on, after the webinar ends, we will send out the handout of this webinar. So for you guys who is interested in these promotions, you can actually find out more details in the link below. Okay, so now let me just pass the webinar back to our investment analyst Tian Yong.
Okay, hi, good evening everyone. Apologize for the change in timing. I'm so glad that everyone is here. My name is Tian Yong and I'm an investment analyst with Phillip Futures. So today we'll be talking about the presidential elections and how we can capitalize on recent developments and future events in the equity, index futures and currency space. So as everyone can see over here on the screen, today we'll be discussing 5 main topics before we wrap up for the evening. The first one will be on the presidential elections process and also a bit on an introduction on the presidential candidates Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, in case everyone is not already very familiar with them. Third, we do a quick update on the current political snapshot and how the two candidates are doing against each other. And lastly, the juice of the presentation, the impact of Hillary Clinton victory as opposed to Donald Trump victory on equity index futures and also currencies. So during this seminar, it's going to be very interactive. I'll encourage questions. However, sorry, let me just check this. We have a question. Okay, sorry for that. Okay, so in terms of questions, please feel free to ask questions, and but I'll really prefer if the questions are kept to the back of the seminar. However, if there's something really pressing that you feel it's timely to ask at a specific point in time, please feel free to do so, and I'll really encourage a lot of discussion after this seminar. Okay, so without further ado, I'll get to the juice of the presentation. Okay, so welcome to this presentation. First, we'll be talking about the presidential elections process. Okay, so in this elections process, okay, we just catch up with the timeline. So the hype of this year would be the US presidential elections, especially in this part of the year. Earlier in the year, we had our primaries and caucuses, okay, where we had the party members vote and select the candidate that they think will best represent them in the presidential elections. Okay, however, the actual nomination is during the national conventions which took place in around between July and August this year for the two major parties. And as of late, we came into the presidential debates where we saw the candidates meet and discuss key issues, okay, some of the time, in some debates most of the time, and policies, okay, so as to appeal to their potential voters, okay, to get more votes. However, the thing on the horizon now is the big November 8th, okay, that would be the presidential elections day. Okay, so that's not to say that all Americans will vote on that day. Okay, firstly, some Americans have already begun their votes by mailing in or by doing an early vote. Okay, and however, voter turnout is almost never 100% when it comes to the presidential elections. Okay, however, most Americans tend to vote closer to the date, or if not on the day itself. Okay, so next we move on to the presidential voting process. Okay, how it is actually done, and actually all this is very important when we want to really understand and size up and analyze the outcome of this election. So unlike Singapore, in the US, voting for a president is done indirectly. Okay, so instead of voting directly for Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton or any other candidate, okay, voters actually vote for electors who will then in turn vote for the respective candidate that they pledge to vote for. Okay, it might be quite unfamiliar to a lot of us. Okay, and in the US, they practice this electoral college system. So in the US, there are a total of 538 electors. They form the Electoral College. And how are these electors allocated across the states? Okay, so every state will have a set number of electors, okay, which is 2 plus the number of members in Congress representing that state. Okay, and the number of people in this Congress is determined by the population of the state. So if, for example, in California, members of House of Representatives. So for example, in California, it's a very popular state, and therefore it gets allocated much more than, say, a less populated state as well. Okay, so that's how it's done. So in this sense, you will see some states having many more electors as compared to other states. Okay, and all this is part of the political strategy that candidates must keep in mind when they want to win the presidential race. Okay, next thing about the presidential voting process is that there's this winner takes all principle. So this is applied to most of the states, meaning to say if within a certain state they have 40 electoral votes and the candidate wins just 21, the candidate will get all 40 of the votes. So let's remember there are a total of 538 electoral votes. Okay, and only 270 is needed to be president of the United States. Okay, so over here we see a map of how the electoral votes are distributed across the United States and including Colombia. Okay, on the bottom left of the map, you can see California represented by CA. Yes, 55 votes. So if you compare it with, say, Nevada, there's only 6 votes. So you can see the disparity and distribution of the electoral votes here. Okay, so to strategize and to capture the most efficient way to win this presidential race, okay, the big number to aim at is 270. And in this table, I've highlighted 11 states. I call them the power states. Okay, these 11 states, if you win these 11 states, it is sufficient for you to be president. Sorry about that. So to say winning just 11 out of 50 states is enough for a candidate to become president. And what's more, if you just become the majority in these 11 states by having 25% of the votes distributed evenly across this, distributed proportionately in the sense that you become the majority in each of these states, okay, you can become the president. So it is possible for a candidate to win only 25% of the vote and become president. So in this presidential race, it is not about being popular, rather it is about winning the race. So it's a very strategic game here. And in the next few slides, I will share on how these candidates have been doing and executing their strategies to try to win this race. Okay, so next up, I will share a bit on the candidates, okay, in case we are not already accustomed to them. Okay, so first up, I'll talk about Hillary Clinton. Okay, so for her profile, she is a very seasoned politician. Okay, she has assumed office in many various roles, including being the First Lady and the Senator, and she has a doctorate in law. So she's both educated and experienced. Okay, so her key positions are often perceived as being moderate. Okay, so a lot of the media actually perceives her as you know, yeah, we just got to comment. Okay, yeah, also perceives her as being not too different from the predecessor, President Obama. Okay, but some of the key positions that she takes, which can be very important when you want to trade in equity index futures, would be that she has announced that she's anti Trans-Pacific Partnership. Okay, and also she's very pro-clean energy, and she's pro-naturalization when it comes to, when we're talking about immigrants as well. And also she wants to introduce some tax reliefs for small businesses and while taxing the wealthy more. So these things, they have economic implications. Okay, we'll talk about that later. Okay, so for her supporter base, okay, it is very diverse as compared to her competitor Donald Trump. Okay, so basically she has an edge over Donald Trump in general in terms of the minority groups. We're talking about the Black Americans, the Hispanics, and etc. And females, okay, no surprise there, and also the younger ones, millennials, as well as lower income groups and more educated individuals. So this forms her supporter base as well as non-religious individuals. Okay. However, Hillary Clinton also has her impediments to presidency. Okay, so she has been shrouded by controversy with regards to her past email deletion actions and also recent WikiLeaks releases, and sometimes she is being perceived as a not credible. Like some people find it hard to trust her, and some people perceive her as being too close to Wall Street, being too close to the bankers, and generally that is frowned upon. Okay, and next up, some recent news on Hillary Clinton. Okay, so two noticeable advances that Clinton has been making recently is her progress into what used to be traditionally Republican states. So according to the polls, these Republican strongholds have started to become swing states. Okay, a swing state can be described largely as an undecided state. So there's no dominant support for either party, which makes these states all the more important because they can swing either way. That's something noticeable that she has been doing lately. Okay, so I'll move on to Donald Trump. Okay, so this is a picture of him. Okay, next up, his profile. So as compared to Hillary Clinton, sorry about that, Donald Trump has zero or close to zero political experience. Okay, however, he's a billionaire, he's an experienced businessman, and he's affiliated with the Republicans. Okay, so his key positions tend to be more noticeable in the media. It has been harped on quite a lot by the media. Some key positions are anti-illegal immigrants, and he wants to cut taxes. Sorry, sorry for the cough. Okay. He wants to cut taxes for businesses from 35% to 15%. He also wants to renegotiate all existing trade deals and also withdraw from the TPP as well. Okay, but one potentially economically wrecking policy is that he wants to impose taxes and tariffs on China. Okay, and some of them so he wants to impose taxes and tariffs from China. So the number of 45% has been quoted before. So we examine how this will impact the equities. He's also very pro-coal and pro-fracking. So what is fracking? Fracking is a new way of extracting oil from the ground. The kind of oil that is extracted from the ground is called shale oil. So the US has a huge, immense reserves of shale oil trapped underground. So he wants to deregulate and promote fracking so that the US can tap on this. So that's one plus point over there. And lastly, Donald Trump is also very pro-militarization, and he wants to also empower the police in the US. So as opposed to Hillary Clinton, his supporter base consists mostly of whites, males, older Americans, Mormons and Protestants. Okay, Mormons and Protestants are denominations of Christianity. So they are more conservative, and also non-college educated whites. So he has a very consolidated white support base. Okay. So next. Okay, impediments to his presidency. I believe I do not need to explain further on these points. Okay, some remarks on women and some of his claims, and quite a few people question his lack of political track record. Recent news. However, Donald Trump has not been quite as Trumpish as he used to be. So just last week, or maybe even over the weekend, he reviewed his 100-day plan. So this is very different from the kind of Trump that we have been used to seeing. He actually came up with details, okay, of what he'll do during his first 100 days if he becomes elected as president. So these are a few of the acts that he has introduced. He actually talked about it at Pennsylvania and shared about what the specific steps he's going to do. So there's a small break away from the classic Trump behavior. And also, he has launched his own nightly show where he will, broadcast and promote the kind of things that he has been doing because of his recent criticisms of the mainstream media being biased or even rigged against him. All right, so after an introduction to the two presidential candidates, we really want to know where they stand at present, okay? And we really want to put some numbers to what we have been feeling so far. Okay, so here is the current layout of the inclinations of the different states. Okay, I want to say that all these are based on polls. It is in no way assuring of the actual turnout on the day or the actual majority on the day. These are just polls. Okay, as you can see at the top, Clinton is leading Trump at 272 as compared to 126 electoral votes. Okay, so the number in the middle, 140 toss-ups, we're talking about the swing states. Okay, in gray, they are shown on the map as well. Okay, so these gray states actually denote the states which are largely undecided. Let's look at Texas. Okay, so I talked about Texas earlier. Texas used to be a Republican support base, but now it's gray. And look at the number of electoral votes, 38. It's more than 10% of what you need to become president. Okay, remember 270 is the big number. Okay, although Clinton is at 272, let's keep in mind these are just polls. Okay, I'll explain more later. Okay, so in terms of the national average, the poll of polls, this is by Real Clear Politics. Okay, this is a poll of polls. So this is a consolidation of numerous polls across the state, across the country, and we have these numbers. Clinton at 48.3%, Trump at 43.2%. Okay, so the lead of Clinton over Trump on October 25th, which is yesterday, is at plus 5.1. Okay, so the big question, does Trump still have a fighting chance? Okay, so technically speaking, Trump, yes, he still has a fighting chance. Okay, but if we look at this map, there's no red. Okay, these are the power states, there's no red. However, the reason why Trump has a fighting chance, in my view, is that the swing states are still there for the taking. And if you look at these swing states, they are sizable in votes. Okay, so Trump has a fighting chance in this sense. However, yes and no. The reason why I say no is because Clinton has such a huge lead over Trump in terms of polls. Okay, but another counter argument is that polls are indicative and they may not translate to actual votes. Okay, so say for example the Black Americans. Okay, Clinton, according to polls, has a resounding advantage over Trump amongst the Black Americans. However, when it comes to Black Americans, yes, they might be included in the sample size when you poll them, but Black Americans historically have a low turnout on voting day. So polls may not translate to results. Okay, so that's one point. All right. Okay, so before we move on, I'd like to ask are there any questions from the audience so far on the whole process? If not, we'll move on. Okay, so now let's get to the juice of the presentation. What is my view on what will happen when each presidential candidate wins? Okay, so first, let's talk about the Clinton impact. Okay, this is an overview of what I'll be talking about. Okay, so I'll split them up. I've already split them up into the short-term and also the long-term impact of Clinton victory. Okay, so let's move on to the short term. So in the short term, okay, my view is that US equity indices as well as the US dollar will express relief, okay, when we see a Clinton victory. However, even if the results came out, you know, on election day upon the announcement of the results, we might not see much movement, because when it comes to equities and currencies, okay, any new available information will be incorporated in the price, and you know the prices will react accordingly. Okay, so even before the results are released, we might already see the victory priced in. However, as on election day, if the results are already starting to show an inclination towards Clinton, we may see a positive reaction in the markets. All right. Okay, and this is not because of any actual change in the economy. Okay, all these are due to the market expectations being revised, and Clinton is perceived as the more conventional one, and we can see the prices move that way. However, another angle we can look at this is, you know, we have to watch out for the Trump effect as well in the Clinton impact. So Donald Trump, as of late, he has been perpetuating this rhetoric that, you know, elections are rigged. Okay, they may be rigged, and the media is biased against him. You know, don't believe all these polls, stuff like that. And the thing about this is that his supporters are actually believing him. So there's been quite a few interviews on the news, you know, that his supporters actually believe this. So this may lead to a lot of unhappiness amongst the Trump base, and it might also discourage voter turnout on election day. So this, I'll call this a scorched earth policy. A scorched earth policy is actually a military tactic whereby, you know, if I feel that I may not win, you know, I will want to reduce the kind of incentives that my opponent gets, even if he or she wins. Okay, so this policy may have impacts on the election result and the post-election dynamic as well. Okay, so when it comes to the Clinton impact on specific industries, let's just take a look at a few of the sectors. Okay, so the first sector I want to talk about is energy. So in Hillary Clinton's policy list, one of them is to try to phase out and transition to clean energy by 2020. Okay, what does this mean for oil and coal equities? Okay, this in my view is not good news. All right. So, and furthermore, when it comes to equity indices, the energy component of major equity indices like your S&P 500 is dominated by oil and also coal equity. So I'm bearish on the energy sector if Hillary Clinton assumes office as president. Secondly, we look at the pharmaceuticals. Okay, so another one of her very strong positions is to try to bring down excessively high medication costs if she assumes office as president. All right, and for me, I feel that this is going to be a big squeeze, an immense squeeze on the pharmaceutical sector. Okay. Next, telecommunications. Another one of Clinton's policies is to bring affordable broadband to all American households and Wi-Fi in public places. So when it comes to telecoms, we'll probably see an increase in government projects over there. Okay, and lastly, multinationals. Okay, when it comes to this point, I just want to highlight the point that, you know, although Trump and Clinton are very different, this is one thing that the two of them have in common. The two of them are generally protectionistic. Okay, what do I mean by that? Is that, you know, they want to protect American workers. You know, they want to try to bring back jobs to America, and one of the ways they are trying to do that is to withdraw from deals like the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Okay, while this might resound with some of the American workers, you know, they feel like, oh, I'm being marginalized by you know, all this outsourcing, etc. But on a global macro perspective, anti-trade generally is, in my view, is bad for the economy. Okay, because if you want to withdraw from a deal like that, you know, in the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the US stands to gain in terms of the removal of up to 18,000 tariffs, which are currently existing. So withdrawing from something like that, in my view, may not be a good thing for America. All right, so this will have impact on the multinational corporations, which are already relying on a lot of foreign inputs like labor and materials. Okay, so withdrawing from something like that, the firms will not be able to tap on these benefits. Okay, and another dimension we have to watch out for is the Federal Reserve. Okay, my view is that after a Clinton victory, we will see the next big thing will be the Federal Reserve interest rate hike in December. And Federal Reserve officials like Stanley Fischer and William Dudley, they have repeatedly mentioned, the economy is very close to targets. It's very close to targets, and Stanley Fischer even went out. One of the Federal Reserve officials even went out to say that we will probably see a hike in December, or no, sorry, not December, this year. Okay. So in this chart, we'll see what the market thinks of the probability of an interest rate hike. So on the blue lines, we see the chance that the market has priced in of a December hike, and the red line we see the chance of a November hike. So these are derived from Federal Funds Futures, okay, and it's from Bloomberg. Okay, so one of the more recent data shows that, for December hike, we're looking at 68%. It's not a low probability, so the markets are already slowly pricing in this probability. So from late June, okay, we saw the probabilities gradually increasing, okay, to 68%. Okay. So on this chart, I've done a quick analysis, okay, on Hillary Clinton's policies and the expected impact on various sectors. Okay. So on the leftmost column, we see the different policies. Okay. The second leftmost column, we see the expected fiscal impact. Fiscal impact meaning to say how much will it cost or translate the revenues for the government. Okay. On the second rightmost column, we see the impact sectors, and the rightmost column, we see the expected impact on the earnings of the firms, okay, the impacted sectors, the firms of the impacted sectors. So red represents a negative impact, green represents a positive impact, and white is neutral. All right. So I'll spend quite some time on this slide because it's quite a handful. Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, the clean energy policy is expected to be a boon to renewable energy firms as well as infrastructure spending. Okay, however, for infrastructure spending, it is expected to also benefit your industrial stocks as well as the telecommunications. Okay, for tax relief, it is expected to impact very small businesses and startups, and affordable housing just slightly on the industrials. However, all these wealthy tax related policies, in my view, it wouldn't have a huge impact, at least in the near term. Okay, tuition-free colleges, social security. However, for Wall Street reform, it might hurt the financials a bit. Corporate tax reform, okay, is expected to hurt the multinational businesses. Prescription drugs reform, your pharmaceuticals, which is in healthcare. Clean energy policy is going to hurt energy stocks in the major equity indices because most of them are oil and coal stocks. Okay, and rejection of the Trans-Pacific Partnership is going to deny firms with dealings in these regions the possibility of benefiting from the removal of tariffs. Okay. So next, let's move on. Okay, so I've looked at four major equity indices in the US, namely the S&P 500, Dow Jones Industrial Average, or NASDAQ 100, and Russell 2000. And I've categorized them into different sectors. I've also ranked the sectors weight relative to the others within the index. So when we look at the S&P 500, okay, the most heavily weighted sector will be your infotech, followed by healthcare, financials, and so on. Okay, so I've highlighted in blue the more significant sectors within each index, and you can see the respective impacts. Okay, so for Clinton, I'll say that one of the pluses will be in telecommunications. However, one of the worst hit industries I feel will be the effect of a Clinton-led victory, would be the pharmaceuticals, which is in healthcare, and also in energy. Okay. However, there's one thing that I'd like everyone to note is that Clinton's policies may not materialize at all. Okay, so if Hillary Clinton does not carry out what she says, the impact of that policy will not be materialized at all. Okay. So next, I'd like to bring some attention to the S&P 500. Okay, so for myself, I've been asked a lot of times, do you think the S&P 500 is very high? Okay, my answer is yes, it is very high. However, if you ask me another question, do you think that the S&P 500 has room to go higher? Okay, for me, my view is that yes, there is still further room for the S&P 500 to appreciate more. Okay, the basis of this argument is that PE ratios are still not extremely high as compared to historical PE ratios. Okay, let me orientate you to this chart over here. On this chart, we see the gray lines in the background, the gray vertical lines in the background, the histogram. Okay, this is the PE ratio of the S&P 500. Okay, the blue line will be the price of the S&P 500. The red line is the best earnings per share. Okay, this best earnings per share is provided by Bloomberg. Okay, and this shows just the earnings of the S&P 500. So the PE ratio is known as the price earnings ratio. It is the blue line, which is price, divided by earnings, which is the red line. So when you get the blue line and you divide it by the red line, you get the gray line. So PE ratio is often used as an indicator of value, of a stock or even an index, or even an index in general. Sorry, I got a cough. Yeah, my throat isn't feeling very well today. I apologize. Okay, so let me go on about the PE ratio. Okay, so if we take a look at maybe 1999, okay, for the S&P 500, from 1990 until present, we'll see that the PE ratio in 1999 is the highest. Okay, experienced investors or people who have actually lived through this or read about this, we know that during this period we had our dot-com bubble. Okay, so in this dot-com bubble, we saw information technology stocks being extremely highly valued, and PE ratios were sky high back then. Okay, overvaluation. Okay, what resulted after that is the dot-com bubble burst. Okay, we saw the S&P 500 retract, and then S&P 500 recovered again. Okay, so in 07, okay, we saw another peak in the index. Okay, this time we saw the PE ratio to be not as high as before. Okay, so every crash has its own story. In 07, the story was about the subprime mortgages. Okay, the markets were surprised. In 1999, markets were also surprised. Okay, as the bubble burst. So in both cases, it was unexpected. Okay, however, let's look at the present PE ratios. Okay, if you want to compare it to the dot-com era, okay, it's relatively not very high. But if you want to compare it to pre-crisis in 07, it's slightly higher. Okay, however, let's look at the blue and the red lines. Okay, as prices increased, it was supported by earnings. Okay, which is why the PE ratio did not suddenly spike up. Rather, it increased gradually over time. So my view is that at present levels, the PE is still rather supported by earnings. Okay, however, if you ask me whether the S&P 500 has room for appreciation, I'll say yes. Okay, despite it being at all-time highs. Okay, however, there might be some delays, okay, and impediments for the S&P to appreciate further. But generally, my answer is yes. I'll explain why later. Okay, so when it comes to Hillary Clinton, my view is that there will be short-term relief when it is reasonably certain that she is going to be the next president. Okay, however, in the midterm, we might see some resistance. Okay, in the equity index. Okay. Okay, the reason being, after the presidential elections, we have the FOMC meetings. We have the Federal Reserve's interest rate decisions. So that's going to be in around December, just going to be on December 15. So from November 8 to December 15, yes, although there might be some positives, but market participants, in my view, will still remain cautious and hear what the Fed has to say, moving forward. Okay, at this point in time, I feel that markets have effectively most of them have already accepted the fact that there's going to be a rate hike this year, and it's going to probably happen in December. Probably, we do not know for sure. Okay, but usually at these pivotal moments, like back in 2015, okay, they really want to hear what the Federal Reserve has to say moving forward. Okay, what's the view? What's going to happen from now on? What's going to be the frequency of hikes moving forward? Okay. So from now, from election day until December, I would not expect the S&P 500 to break the resistance level of 2,200. Okay. However, after the market settles, all these big troubling things for the index, finally settles, the dust settles. I feel that yes, there may be chance for the S&P 500 to appreciate further beyond 2,200. Okay. So next up, okay, in terms of currencies for Hillary Clinton, my idea is to go for a divergent play. Okay, and I looked at the sterling and the dollar. Okay, the British pound and the dollar. My view is that with a Clinton win, okay, we have an opportunity for a divergent play. Okay, on one hand, a reason why the USD may appreciate is also due to the post-elections relief, as well as the effect of a US interest rate hike. So upon a US interest rate hike, my view is that we will see funds pouring into the dollar because the yield is higher. And the second supporting factor, is that markets will be relieved if Clinton assumes office as a president. On the other hand, reasons why the pound may depreciate is due to the possibility of further Bank of England easing, okay, central bank easing. And why? This is due to the effects of Brexit, slowly creeping in, okay, as the negotiations go on, and how Article 50 is going to be invoked. Okay, all these things, many analysts have looked at it, and general consensus is that as all this, if there are increasingly, more restrictions put on the UK, for its exit from the EU, okay, we are expecting to see limits and also dampeners on the United Kingdom's economy. Okay, and these things will cripple the pound further. Okay, so on one hand you have your USD appreciating, on the other hand you have your pound depreciating, and the net effect of this is, the dollar pound going down further. However, I do not expect it to go to 1.052, which is the all-time low. I'm looking at somewhere slightly higher than that, maybe 117. Okay, that's my target. Okay, but we really have to see how this unravels. Okay, so before I move on, any questions from the floor? I think I have a few comments. Hang on, try to read them. Okay, let's just read just some comments. Okay, so we have a question. Okay, this is a political question. Okay, I'll take this one. So the question is, you assume the fight is only between Clinton and Trump and want to win. So what happens if there's a hang vote? For example, close votes and Trump asks for a recount. Okay, and number two, an independent candidate wins. Okay, so the reason why I distilled the analysis to either one of the two is that point number one, I do not see an independent candidate winning. The chance is there, but it's very low. And secondly, if there's a recount, Trump asks for a recount, that is also possible. Okay, but when it comes to a recount, we have to see who is the ultimate victor, but the recount will be destabilizing. Okay, the fact that Trump asked for a recount will be a destabilizing factor in my view. And secondly, yeah, ask for a recount, yeah, in my view that will be a destabilizing factor. And the second possibility is that, even if Clinton wins, Trump may even deny the results of the elections. Previously, as mentioned, he thinks it's rigged, and he has refused to comment on whether he'll accept defeat if he'll accept the results of the presidential elections. So the possibility is there. So to the two scenarios, asking for a recount and not accepting the results of the election, I feel that it's going to be destabilizing, and maybe on the intraday level, intra-week level, we will see some uncertainty and volatility. Okay, so another question. Clean energy, do you mean company like First Solar? Okay, so I'm from Phillip Futures. I'm actually not allowed to give comments on specific stocks. Okay, so I can't really talk about specific stocks. But clean energy, what I meant by clean energy, you know, is companies which does things like solar panels, your wind turbines, even dams, you know, electricity, and as well as the wind energy and solar energy. So any alternative to what is perceived as polluting the environment, okay, is, in my view, is you can just group it as clean energy. And Hillary Clinton has actually specifically mentioned that she wants to increase the number of solar panels, okay, in the USA, so much so that it is enough to run the country. Okay, so we're looking at really huge scale clean energy infrastructure spending over there. But whoever, it's not clear which company or companies she's going to assign the contract to, so we really have to wait and see for that one. Okay. If there are no further questions, I will move on to the Trump impact. All right. So let's move on to the Trump impact. What will happen if Donald Trump becomes president? So this is an overview, okay, on what I will be sharing today, short term and mid term. All right. So in the short term, okay, I expect to see huge market disbelief. In my view, after every presidential debate, the first, second, and third, what I observe after that is that the S&P rose up slightly. Okay, so this may mean one of two things for me. Number one, they felt that a particular candidate did better, and the market is actually favoring that one candidate. So according to Reuters news, I read that Hillary Clinton was seen as the victor of the three debates, and that's why the S&P 500 went up. Okay, that's first. Okay, the second thing is that they actually want Hillary Clinton to be perceived as the winner, and that's why they rallied accordingly. Okay, so if this holds true, what it means is that the market has been slowly pricing out a Trump victory. Okay, so if we see a Donald Trump victory, okay, all this pricing out will have to be priced in. Okay, and if it has been pricing out and going up, to price it in again, it has to go down. All right. However, despite what a lot of the media has been perpetuating and a lot of the polls are showing, we still do not know the actual results of the elections, and we should not be complacent. How this story is unraveling to me, in my view, is that it is really like the Brexit story. Okay, so if you look at the rightmost, on the day before the vote, okay, the Leave camp was trailing the Remain camp by quite a sizable margin. Okay, everyone perceived it to be a comfortable enough margin to be reasonably certain that the Remain camp will come out tops. But no, on the actual day, we saw a complete flip of the votes. So I like to draw this parallel to this scenario, that we should not be complacent. We should always be prepared for a case where Donald Trump becomes the president, no matter how the votes look like. No matter how the polls look like. Okay, of course, it's dependent on the votes, yeah, because it decides the president. Okay, but polls are just polls. Okay, next up, impact on the industries. Okay, this is one thing that sets the two candidates apart. Okay, Hillary Clinton is very pro-clean energy. On the other hand, Donald Trump, he wants to tap on the US's untapped shale deposits. Okay, and really tap on them and to use them and convert them to dollars. Okay, and also he wants to boost up coal as well. Okay, the next sector will be the industrials. Okay, so Donald Trump wants to build a wall, okay, a big wall to separate the US and Mexico. All this is expected to boost construction-related industries. Okay, and within industrials, we also have defense companies. Okay, so his pro-militarization and his pro-police enforcement is expected to also boost spending in these sectors, and companies in these sectors are expected to benefit from that. And lastly, information technology. Okay, one other policy is for him to improve the United States cybersecurity. Okay, we may see some contracts going there as well. Okay, next thing, China. Okay, Donald Trump has made a lot of comments on China and how he wants to impose trade tariffs on China. Okay, to me personally, I feel that it will do more harm than good. So much harm, because to me, what I see, the US really relies on China on so many things. Okay, especially imports. Okay, so some fun facts about China and US. Okay, China was the US largest supplier of goods imports in 2015, largest. Okay, it's also the third largest supplier of agricultural imports. Okay, just to give you an idea on the kinds of goods that the US is importing from the US, the US is importing from China will be electrical machinery, your furniture, toys, and footwear. Okay, this is from the Office of the United States Representative. Okay, if this is not enough, I prepared an exercise for everyone to take part in. So in the next few slides, I'm going to present some data, okay, for you to look at, okay, and think about this. What do you think will be the impact of a 45% tariff on Chinese imports? Okay, and let's pretend we are China. Do you think, if someone imposes such a huge tariff on our exports, do you think you want to retaliate? Okay, so let's look at the hard numbers. Okay, so in this slide, okay, we see what the US actually imports from China. I've sorted this table by the value, total value of the goods which have been imported from China. Okay, we have cell phones, computers, toys, telecom equipment, clothes, textiles, furniture, household appliances, footwear, apparel. These things, we can't escape from these things. We see these things every day. Every company needs them. Okay, basically almost every industry needs all these goods. And if you want to impose a 45% tariff on China, what's going to happen to the prices of these goods? And what kind of companies will be hurt by these goods? Okay, it's a sweepingly disastrous effect, okay, in my view. Okay, if you're going to impose such a huge tariff on such a huge exporter of the goods that you need. Okay, next up, I've sorted them by proportion now. Okay, so we see, okay, so for the third column from the left, the value thousands of USD, the more blue it is, the larger the number is. Okay, and look at this, sorted by proportion. 76% of US imports of toys are from China. Okay, we're not talking about 10%, we're talking about 76%. It's such a huge proportion. Okay, and once again, we see things that we cannot do without. Okay, computer accessories, toys, footwear, things that people buy every day and people use often. All right. Okay, so let's move on from this. Okay, this is my earnings expected impact of the policies. Okay, like I mentioned earlier, one major winner would be our energy stocks. Okay, although Donald Trump proposed major tax cuts from 35% to 15%, my view is that it will be largely undone, if not more than undone, by these tariffs and taxes on China, as well as the rejection of the TPP. Okay, so once again, we have a similar table over here. Okay, energy is expected to be the big winner under Trump, but things like consumer discretionary and staples, even materials, they're going to be hurt so bad because of the tariffs on China. So we live in a very interconnected world. Trade is so important. My view is that we just can't do without China, and there's no real substitute for the kind of production output and the kind of imports that we can get from China, especially low-cost imports. And when talking about volume and price, China is so important to the world. Okay, once again, Trump's policies may not materialize. Okay, that's just a caveat. Just take note of that. Okay, so let's move on to equities. my view is that under a Trump victory, markets are expected to be shocked in the near term. Okay, right now the S&P 500 has been gradually trending down from its all-time high towards the 2120 level. Okay, maybe a Trump victory is what it needs to actually not only test this level but break down from it. Okay, so on an intraday level, we'll see some shock. Over the longer term, during the first 100 days, if Trump carries out his plan, especially the one with China, I feel that it's going to destabilize markets, and equities will price in all the reduced profits, due to harder access to inputs like materials and also the imported goods. Okay. Okay, so any questions so far about this? Okay, if not, I'll carry on. Okay, in terms of currencies, the currency pair I picked will be the dollar-yen pair. As for those who have been watching this currency pair, it has tested the 100 level, the level of 100 yen, 3 times in the past 3 to 4 months. Okay, the reason why it has not been broken is because this level of 100 is psychological. It's a psychological level of support, and a strengthening yen, or rather a weakening dollar, does not spell well for the Japanese equity indices in general. Okay, so when we see a Trump victory, my view is that the US dollar will depreciate. Okay, and why I pick this pair is because the yen is often turned to as a safe haven currency in destabilizing and uncertain periods. So when the main haven currency like the US dollar is under threat and there's uncertainty surrounding the US, okay, the next flight, okay, my view will be to the yen. So these two factors will drive the dollar-yen pair down. Okay, and my view is that it will test 100, but if the scenario is really so bad, it may even break 100. Okay, that's my view. All right, so now let's move on to some wrap up. Okay, so what we talked about today, let's do some recap. Today is my pre-US election special, and we talked about many things. The first thing we talked about is the presidential elections process, how it's done, the timeline, the voting process, the Electoral College, and also the candidates. Okay, we talked about their profile, their positions, their supporter base, impediments, and also some recent developments, just to add some spice to the presentation. Okay, thirdly, we talked about the current political snapshot. Okay, we talked about the polls, the poll averages, and also the importance of the swing states to the candidates. Next, we talked about the Clinton impact. Okay, what will happen in the short term, the impact on the industries, and possible action by the Federal Reserve. Okay, and also her policies, and how it impact equities as well as currencies. Similarly, we talked about Donald Trump, the Trump impact in the near term, impact on industries, Trump's policy on China and how I think it will impact the US economy, his other policies, impact on equities and currencies. Okay, so this is a quick overview on what we have talked about today. I've also prepared for all of you a calendar that you can use to actually keep an eye out on the markets. Okay, from now until the second interest rate decision we'll see this year. Okay, and here it continues. Okay, so the ones highlighted in red are the ones which are important, especially election day and also your interest rate decisions. Okay, this one again. A few days before election day, we have one decision, and just more than a month later, we have the second one. All right. So, after hearing all these, I really hope that everyone will be interested in, exposing themselves to this potentially profitable trading opportunity in the US election space. So here are some tradable avenues that you can tap on, okay, to gain some exposure to the US presidential elections. So the first one will be equity index futures, US equity index futures. You can also tap on currency futures, spot foreign currency, and also commodity futures. Some examples. In the US equity index futures space, you have things like the Dow Jones, the S&P 500, Nasdaq 100, and even the small cap equity index, the Russell 2000. When it comes to spot forex and currency futures, you can trade the USD against a whole series of other currencies like a British pound, yen, euro, Aussie dollar, and your Canadian dollar. So much more. And when it comes to commodities, you can gain exposure to gold, Brent crude, and WTI crude. And of course, Phillip Futures. At Phillip Futures, we offer this full suite of futures and as well as spot forex for you to gain exposure to this huge range of products. What's more, when you trade futures contracts, you only need a small margin of the contract value to trade. Okay, so the remainder of your funds can be used for other investments. Okay, however, I need to inform all of you that although your profits are magnified this way, losses are amplified as well. Secondly, futures contracts are liquid. Okay, especially like your S&P 500 contract. Okay, we see around maybe more than 1 million. Okay, of contracts traded per day when we're talking about a mini S&P contract. Okay, well, most contracts are liquid. Okay, so third, tracking. When it comes to equity index futures, okay, the tracking of the futures price usually is very close to the underlying index, so the tracking error is small. And the fact that futures contracts trade near 24 hours can mean that you can trade your view almost any time. And lastly, in periods like these when there's so much uncertainty and sometimes markets can be bearish instead of bullish, by trading futures contracts, it allows you to take bi-directional views. So you can take not only long positions, you can also take short positions as well, and you can potentially profit from both of these. Okay, so with Phillip Futures, getting started is really easy. For Singaporeans, all you need is just 500 Singapore dollars and your NRIC, and you can proceed to open an account with us. Okay, for Malaysians and foreigners, it's not so much more difficult. You just need to supplement us with just a few more supporting documents. And what's more, you'll get to receive daily analysis reports, except for Saturday and Sunday. Yeah, I won't be working. So, okay, analysts like myself and my colleagues will be making daily reports to get you up to speed on latest market developments and some commentaries just for us to share our views so that, it may just add another dimension to what you think will happen in the market, and hopefully it'll assist you in making your investment decisions. So before I close off the seminar, are there any questions from the ground? Okay, so this is the time where you can just fire away and ask me all the questions that you want to ask. I'll be reading them out loud and sharing them with everyone so that everyone can benefit. Okay? So let's just pick up from some of the questions which were asked before I got to this slide. Okay, one question. Okay, one question. What is the Clinton impact on the SGX and the Trump impact on the SGX? Okay, so when it comes to equity indices, let's talk about equity indices like the STI. Okay, this Singapore index, more often than not, we see major fluctuations based on external factors. So anything that impacts the US, okay, will most probably spill over to this Singaporean index like the STI. Okay, so when it comes to Asian indices and the US indices in general, markets have this risk on and risk off mode. Okay, so if indices in the US like the S&P 500, they're under fire, in my view, markets will actually be on a risk-off mode, and then we'll see a spillover effect to the STI, and we see it dampening as well. Okay, just like today, STI open when STI open within the first 30 minutes, we saw the STI dipping, drastic dips. Okay, especially in the energy and industrial stocks. Okay, the night before we saw oil. Okay, oil prices dipping as well. Okay, so this is how the STI is impacted by global, not just local, but global macro factors. So that's how this US impact will spill over into the STI. I hope that answers your question. If you have any follow-up questions, please feel free to post it in. And another question. So your advice is to buy S&P futures for Clinton win and short for Trump win. Okay, so this is not so clear cut. For Trump, okay, for Trump it's rather clear, and this is just my view. You have to formulate your own view. My view for Trump is that, short opportunity arises in the S&P 500 upon a Trump victory. However, for Clinton, it is not so clear cut. Okay, for Clinton win, which is assumed, it's been assumed in the market. Okay, we'll see intraday relief. Okay, that's my view. But in the longer term, okay, after the FOMC meeting, after all these unsettling events to the index have cleared and the dust settles, okay, we have to look at the fundamental drivers then. Okay, and there is a chance. Okay, I'm not ruling out a breakout from the 2200 level, but if fundamental drivers after these events prove to be, helping the index, the prospective earnings of companies, we may see a chance of the index rising above 2200. That's my view. So for Clinton, it's not so clear cut, but for Trump, my view is it is simpler than the Clinton story. Okay, so another question. Okay, a lot of interest on the STI. So what do you expect the STI to perform from now to 8 November? Okay, so from now to 8th of November, we really have to watch the markets very closely. Okay, when it comes to the STI, if I can describe it as such, within the last 3 months, the STI has been largely range bound. Okay, so it goes up, and it hits the resistance, and it slowly comes down and up and down. So that's what I saw from the index. Okay, the STI. Okay, so at Phillip Futures, we have a similar equity index, which is called the MSCI Singapore Free. Okay, it is like a very close cousin of the STI. Constituents are around 90% similar. Okay, for the SIMSCI, we call it the SIMSCI and the STI. These two are very extremely similar. We saw a very similar price pattern. So for the past 2 weeks, we saw the STI on a gradual increment. Okay, it's been slowly rising, but today, we saw a dip. I was asked earlier today, what does this dip mean? Should I buy on this dip? Okay, so when there was the dip, okay, it was testing the ascending support line. So what I shared was that, at points like these, we should not assume that it will rebound. Okay, when it comes to technical analysis, you see a dip, it tests. There's a reason why it's called a test. Okay, we have to see whether it breaks down or it rebounds. So, I shared, you have to watch it. You have to watch for confirmation of a rebound before you go long. Okay, but today it broke down. Okay, broke downwards, and prices continued to go trail down after testing that. So from now until 8th of November, my view is that, range-bound price movement is expected to persist. Okay, we might even see a narrower price range between which the price bounce up and down. Okay, but we have to watch developments in the US space. Okay, in the US space, mainly the US space nowadays. And also any adverse developments in the local scene. Okay, so for the local economy, there's been quite a lot of negative bleak outlooks shared by various reports. Okay, so we have to watch these few factors. All right. So another question, another comment. All right. On the whole, your analysis is based on the very skewed and biased U.S. mass media who is supporting a Hillary win. So in actual fact, Americans are voting for Trump because they feel that he will be better than Hillary in driving the US economy. Okay, yes, I have to acknowledge that the U.S. media has, if we see our news channels, there's a lot of support for Hillary, and then when Trump says something, they will just harp and harp on it. Yes, so which is why I included a segment talking about can Trump win? Can Trump win? My view is that he still has a fighting chance. Okay, when it comes to polls, polls are just polls. So which is why I shared the two angles, okay, for Trump win. And my view is that the markets have priced him out, okay. But we have to keep an open mind, and it is possible that we might see Trump as the next president. Okay. So another one, gold. Okay, about other asset classes, I have something really exciting to share with everyone. Okay, just stay with me. There's something really exciting coming up. I'm sure all of you will be really expecting quite some good things from that. Okay, but other than that, any other questions? Any more? If not, I will proceed to wrap up the presentation. If there are no other questions, let me see. Let me just take a look at this. Okay. So I suppose there are no more questions. Okay, let me just share with you what's next. All right. So, are you ready to trade the US elections? Okay, I hope you guys are ready, because there's a lot of potential movements that you can actually capitalize on, and make trades and potentially profit from all these movements. So what's next? Okay, on the 15th of November, okay, myself along with two other colleagues, we will do a broad coverage on the post-elections dynamic and what's next for from then on until maybe the end of the year and even beyond. So not only will we be talking about equity index futures, we'll be talking about currencies, gold, oil. Okay, so we'll be doing a really broad view. So this really is really gonna potentially benefit, and we are going to share our insights and perspectives on the whole range of asset classes. Okay, so if you're interested to get just a broad macro view and maybe formulate some trade ideas of your own, feel free to come down on the 15th of November, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Okay, this will be our wrap-up seminar in a post-election space. Okay, opportunities alive. So after the US story, there are so many other stories that we can tap upon. We can tap upon the OPEC story, the China story, and the gold story. So all these things, even the ECB and even the Brexit. Okay, so this whole dynamic, we are going. You can actually come and discuss with us what you think, what we think. Then we just share some views, and everyone. Hopefully everyone can benefit from this. So if there are no further questions, let me just check again. Okay, if there are no further questions, perhaps I would like to wrap this up. Okay, maybe I just open the floor once again for any more questions. I hope everyone has enjoyed this presentation. If you will, please just leave some feedback. What do you think? How do you think the seminar was? You find it informative? What are your views? I'll leave this open maybe for the next 1 to 2 minutes. It'd be really great if you share some feedback on this presentation today. It really helps me as well. Okay, if not, you can feel free to contact me by email. Okay, my name is Tian Yong. My email and my my office phone number is over here. Okay, if you like to open a futures account with us, you can also just drop me an email, or if you just want to find out more, I'll be more than happy to assist you. Okay, so one thing that sets the whole PhillipCapital group apart from other firms is that we have a very, very dedicated support team. Okay, we are always listening, and we really want to always keen to listen to what you have to say. Any queries, really just drop us an email, and we'll be more than happy to assist you and to really discuss with you. If you need some guidance, we can set something up for you as well. Okay, and really appreciate your time. I'm just going to leave this slide here so they can take down my email and phone number. Okay, other than that, if not, I'll wrap up the seminar. Thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate your presence. It's been enjoyable for me as well. Have a great evening.